Hey everybody, welcome to episode 18 of The Union. Very special guest this week. We've got Craig Mintz from Real Geese showing up, taking time out of his busy schedule, getting close to opener. So all those orders are coming in now, and everyone's starting to panic a little bit, I guess. And tractor trailers are just moving product all over the place. So for most of you that are listening, you know Craig's name, you know him from social media, you've probably chatted with him on social media. This will be the first time you actually get to see his face and hear his voice. So Craig, thanks so much for coming on the show, buddy.
Well, thanks for having it. I've kind of, just kind of stumbled, for us, we don't get a whole lot of all your guys' data down here. I've kind of stumbled upon the show last 4 or 5 and especially when Perry was on. Then I started backtracking, obviously, and become a real good fan, real fan of the show. Just like I said earlier, and we spoke off air that it gives you that raw, but it's just the way it's supposed to be. It's not this we're gonna make sure it's all sunshines and rainbows here.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no sunshines and lollipops here, despite Ryan's best efforts to have it that way. As usual, Dave is up in Kincardine, Mark is in Renfrew, Ryan's on the South Shore, Nova Scotia, and Philly's in the Dirty Schwa. I'm in Kingston, Ontario. Craig, where are you, buddy?
We're in Gibsonburg, Ohio, so northwest part of Ohio.
Awesome. Northwest part of Ohio. Is that, I'm trying to do my geography, but are you close to Lake Erie?
Yeah, so Lake Erie, I'm about 45 minutes from Lake Erie. If you would, go to the very end of the very tip of it. So
okay, cool,
yep.
Awesome. Well, let's get right to it. So this was something that was really cool that I didn't know until you told me. But Real Geese has been around since the 90s. Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
No. It's a lot of people just kind of just stumble across this. We don't have a huge. Up until about 4 or 5 years ago, even then, we didn't have a huge social media presence as it's finally growing. We were in the Bass Pro, Cabela's, the bigger stores, and I think the social media has really driven, other companies as well as ourselves to be a market out there that you can go after and kind of figure out. But most of them don't realize how long some of them have, some of us, including some other, of our competitors, have been in business. Daryl Wise started our company in the early 90s, with his outfitting, and then went to my father, who decided he wanted to, try to help develop these decoys into something that they, what they are today. So we've had that, basically 30 years of experience, of making decoys, whether it's the plastics that involved in it or the coloring or what we feel is best. And not only is Daryl still involved, he still comes up with some ideas and we try to make them work. As we have, we build prototypes all season long, and then we'll send them out to get worked on. But it's been a blast. I've been there 16 years, so I've seen developments of some many products, and it's been a good time.
Yeah, amazing that you've been a part of it for 16 years. Tell us, just growing up in that, growing up and being a teenager and coming in and around the warehouse, because I'm sure there's been over the years some pretty colorful people that's come through that warehouse, and some good stories and stuff. And starting from where you are to from what you were to where you are today. Tell us a little bit about growing up there.
Yeah, I mean, it was odd, because even when I was little, I remember seeing birds everywhere, just birds and birds and birds. And then back then I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know that I've walked into a warehouse with $500,000 worth of birds laying everywhere. So you start looking around and you start realizing what was there. And I look back at it, it was really cool. I first started as more of an artist, trying to get Pro 2 birds and, things like that, and the colorful, because we literally take pictures of decoys and then we print them. And the technology back in the 90s and 2000s to screen print something like that, a digital photo, was very difficult. It's not as easy as it is today. So that technology back then, being younger and being a little bit into that technology world, I knew how to do it. Or I knew ways of doing it. So I helped out with that with a lot of our artists. So I got my hands in on that. And then, trying to figure out what needed to be done. Back then, I was more focused on some other parts of the company that, interest me. But then as I got a little older, Real Geese started to really interest me. So about 5 years ago, I started making my stake in the company and purchasing Real Geese over the next 6 years from my father. And then currently making the changes as I feel necessary, as he's not on his way out, but he's 66 and it's time for him to start slowing down. Where myself, it's now time to start picking up. So, I've started making my mark on more of the social media presences and trying to figure out what needs to be done, because again, we were not more social media presence. We were big box stores. Our jobs were to put a cool little display out in big box stores. And as you guys know, big box stores are going the opposite direction of being popular. So that ship to direct is where we're trying to make that change. And a running change that may be.
So you sort of kind of alluded to it. So over the last 4 years, you really started to get involved in the day-to-day operations and stuff, and putting your mark on the company. So the Shadow series is really your baby, what you introduced to the lineup of Real Geese. Tell us a little bit about the Shadow series and
Yeah, I mean, when I kind of got my hands deeper into it, I talked to a lot of our pro staff and just general people on Facebook and social media what they wanted. They wanted an economic bird, and then I had people that wanted, a black and white bird. So we didn't really want to go down the path of an economical, colorful bird. That was not something we really had interest in, but we did have interest in a black and white bird. So we didn't really have an entry level, or what we would call, as what I guess a lot of the competitors are now calling, an entry level price point. Our decoys are not your low budget decoys, but again, ours are an investment in your project. If you plan on hunting the next 10 years, our decoys are what you're looking for. If you're only going to do it because it's a fad and you're looking to do it for 2 or 3 months, we're not the decoy for you. But the Shadow series is sitting there, and we had already started it 2 or 3 years prior to me getting my hands on it, but it died. So I kind of took it, and I spent about 9 months developing it and getting it right, getting the plastic. I went out and bought a lot of our competitors, find out what people like about them, and find out what I like about them, and what I can do to make our product similar, but not the exact, and make our own twist on it. So what we did is the normal birds out there that are corrugated are 4 millimeter. These are 2 millimeter corrugated. And we also took, 4 millimeter corrugated plastic normally has right around 600 to 750 grams per inch. So normally as you get thinner, you lose those grams. So normally 200 or 2 millimeter is right around 300 to 400 grams. We specialize this plastic to where it has 900 grams of plastic. So it's a little specs on some of this, some of the insides of it. So we took basically all the plastic we could get and shoved it into 2 millimeter, which makes it stronger, but it makes it lighter because it's thinner. And a couple other things that we did that were unique is we do cross corrugated. So all of our decoys, instead of them being vertical, so the flutes, instead of running vertical, which we feel makes a pivot point for the wind and the stakes that go through them, all of our birds are cross corrugated, so they won't fold in half. So you can take our shadows and honestly bend them in a big U, and we normally call it the beak to tail test. If they touch and fold flat, that's exactly what we want. If they crease, it's a problem. So that was kind of our little marks with that. The Pro 3s, I had a little bit of help with that. That's one of our new birds, and then our new cranes that just came out. I had a pretty big part in that as well. So
awesome. So,
you talk about those new skinnies being black and whites, but I just saw them. I was down at Canadian Waterfowl Supply, and I looked at them, and they're a sharp-looking decoy for what you're actually getting. I found they're not just black and white.
No, I mean, that was what we wanted to. I mean, there's black and whites on the market. We didn't want to make that. We didn't want to just make another one. Why? What's the point of having another one on the market? So we wanted to take something that had that feathery look and that contrast look to what you're going to use for them anyway, and have that price point to where people can buy 10, 12 dozen of them and not break the bank, and build that spread and put them around the perimeter of their spreads and really pull these geese in.
Yeah, I found they look pretty sharp. Have you heard of people like trying to just use those as a full spread?
I haven't yet. We've had some people talking about it, but we've never really had anybody just using just those. I'd be curious to see what it looks like. We're working on some drones footages and stuff like that, and trying to see what it looks like. But I mean, I haven't. But if somebody else comes across and says, "Hey," I'd be open to taking some pictures of it.
Mm-hmm. You sort of kind of touched on it on the last question, but obviously this is a real good forum for you to plug your product and tell us, so there are other products out there on the market right now, and there's still a lot of people out there that fully hasn't committed to this idea of the silhouettes or the skinny decoys, right? So when you do your 30-second elevator pitch to somebody that's anti silhouettes or why go to real geese, what's your pitch?
If I'm trying to get them off of another brand, I tell them our brand is an investment. Our brand is, hey, let's if you're gonna do this for a while, let's invest in some decoys. I mean, I have decoys that are 25 years old, 20 years old, and they look like they just came out of the box. If you take care of your stuff, it works. That's the thing that I like about our decoys is they're built to last. They're not built to replace. So that's one thing that I go with that. Going off of just making them skinnies, and a lot of people will call us and say, well, you just use skinnies. Not necessarily. I mean, I'm not opposed to using full bodies or using anything else. We just feel that, I'm a little guy, and I can carry 12 to 14 dozen to the field. That's, I think, the big advantage. You get that big spread, the big, visual from that. And if you start doing I got the biology of a goose, their necks, they struggle to look down, straight down, especially with eyes on both sides of their head. Their vision does not overlap. So by math wise, and by, obviously there's no way to truly prove this, but their eyes will never cross like ours do to create that 3D effect. So if they even see an 180 point of view, that 180 point of view will never overlap. So with that being said, technically you shouldn't be able to see in 3D. So with that being said, that's kind of, of a little bit of our pitch. We don't technically go into the biology part of it, but when you fly over, even if you take drones, as you fly over them, they'll disappear. Nah, if you actually look at it, they actually creates movement. As you go over to it, by the one disappearing, and as you look at it again and re-look at it, it looked like it moved. So if you really wanted to look at it, that'd be kind of my pitch. There's a lot of people out there that'll say differently, but again, I'm not a guy that's going to sit here and throw this skinny thing down everybody's throat that says, hey, you have to use skinnies and that's it. Yeah. I own real geese and I still have full bodies. It's just, I think you get a good blend with it. But there's times that I hunt with just skinnies just because I'm going by myself or I'm going with a buddy of mine and we don't want to carry, 25 full bodies out to the field. We want to carry 40, dozen real geese. But then there's guys that I go out with them and they, I'll hunt with them and they got full bodies and we mix them and we've always had good success.
Craig, can you go back to the Shadow series?
Mm-hmm.
You tell people who might not understand the intent, like say compared to like a pro series where you have the equal image of a goose on either side of the decoy versus the Shadow series where you have the black and then the image on the other side.
Well, our shadow will have black on both sides, so it'll be a shadow on both sides. We've actually, it was kind of funny you talked about that because we've talked about running that as an option, having a colored bird on one side and a shadow on another. But our shadows, when we built them, one, it was economic. Two, we really wanted that contrast look. We really wanted that perimeter, send them around the decoys that you got in the center and bring them just right to the middle of it. And by doing that with the shadows, making that really dark black, and then having the feathery part of it, instead of just this white cheek and white belly, you get that little detail. And there's many times that if you set them out in the field, you'll get that kind of contrast and be like, what, is that just a dark goose? Or, that you don't get that lighting that, you get with the other ones.
So, go ahead, Phil.
Well, I think at least, one of the biggest selling features for you guys is not everyone owns a pickup truck, right? Not everyone owns, a big honking goose trailer. So when you guys came out with this product back in the 90s, you very much got that niche where again, not everyone has the money to spend on a truck and a trailer and this and that. A guy that's got, any, say, regular sized car, you can still jam 10, 20 dozen in a car and a layout blind and get out there with your buddies and hunt and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and that's the benefit, and again, that's why I really like these and like the skinny option is it's easy to set up, it's easy to even leave up. You're doing a morning hunt, you're doing an afternoon hunt, you can leave them up. They're not going to go nowhere. And like you said, a guy that is not benefited with a car or benefited with or a truck or throw him in his wife's minivan for all I care, and you can go down the road. So. And being able to carry 20 dozen or 16 dozen with one guy is really helpful to a spread, even if he's going with his buddies.
Yeah. Or even say if you got to do a walk-in and you're doing solo, you do one walk-in with your one walk-in with your silos, another walk-in with your blind, and you're good to go, right? And you can go out there and run 10, 15 dozen and go out there and shoot your limit in no time, right?
Yeah, and that's, like I said, it's awesome to be able to walk in because you can't take your trailer everywhere, even if you do have a trailer. Sometimes, and hunters, they don't love you dragging a trailer in and getting stuck. And you don't, sometimes you can't even, where you can park and where you can get to, it's just not accessible. So that's the benefit too. Like you said, a walk-in is amazing to be able to get from one point to the other, carrying everything on one guy, shotgun and let's go. And all of our bags, we have our step stakes, and our slide hammers fit on our bag. So you getting to a place that's pretty frozen, that right there will be a blessing when you get into that ground.
And yeah, that's one of the things that I've heard about the real geese versus some of the others is that stake system is like a 1-inch wide piece of wood. Whenever we see it's frozen, we just bring a 1-inch drill bit, like a spade bit in with us and just pop the drill in and that works fine. But you guys have a system for getting the stakes into the ground, do you?
Yeah, so we have just a standard step stake. So it's just it's identical to the stake. So it's a piece of basically raw steel that we powder coat, put a nice handle on, and it's shaped identically to the point of the stake and the length that you're going to need to. And then we just, look, you can do it with one guy. It's easier, obviously, if you have two, one guy just walking around with a step stake and the next one just putting them in. But we also have a slide hammer, so it's no different than a post driver. Again, shaped just like our stakes. So as you walk up, couple slams on the frozen ground and out you go. Everybody keeps going back to the wooden stakes. I mean, that's kind of our signature. We've had them forever, and we make those in-house. Everything is the pines literally right down the road from our wood mill. Everything is painted in here, but it is sometimes a pain. But I've hunted with both that and the wire and frozen ground. And I've also had some problems where I've tried to, smack in some wire stakes, and I end up missing, or I bend the stakes to a point to where they're not usable anymore.
Yep. And that's another thing you touched on there. Like, obviously we're all Canadian here except for yourself, but you guys are that's one thing that I keep hearing is that you guys have a lot of American-made parts on there. Is that one of the big things about Real Geese?
Yeah, so everything Real Geese, the only thing that is not 100% American-made is our bag and our hats. Those are the only things that are not 100% American-made, and I'm talking all the way down to the plastics that are, when they're formed and made, all the way to the inks being bought in the United States and produced in the United States. The people working are all in my factory. The boxes that are produced are made in the United States. The labels, I mean, there's nothing. If you buy it, I don't care if it's a bolt, if it's a stake, if it's a label, if it's printed, inks, anything. It is 100% United States produced. And it's one thing that we strive on. Sometimes our prices, obviously, on our stakes, like just for one instance, our wire stakes for the Shadow series. Trying to find a competitor to compete with other countries in the United States with steel. Currently in the United States, that's very difficult to do it at that price point. Well, we found one. And it works. But again, we had to kind of, adjust our prices a little bit to show that accordingly. We're only probably talking maybe 15 to 20 cents a difference per stake. But again, it is a little bit difficult, but we take pride in that. That's something that my father and I are really heavy into. We do that with all of our other companies as well. We want to stay that way. I'll never go a different direction. But it's one thing our employees are proud of as well.
That's a real good point. Do you think that over the last year and a half, and I would say very hard the last year and a half, this, I'll call it made in North America, but you guys are using made in the States because obviously we'll use Canada, we'll use the States. Yep. But do you think that this is going to be more of a thing now? Like, do you think your consumers are going to start asking, listen, where's the stuff that I'm buying? Because I know I look at where my stuff is bought. Sometimes I don't have a choice. I've got to buy it that it's made overseas. But if I can, I'll buy stuff made in Canada or the U.S., North American made. Do you think that that's going to be a big thing with consumers in the future?
Yeah and no. I think I would say if you're and I can't tell you that for sure, but I've really found it more recently with the younger generation doesn't care.
Right.
I think the older you get, the more you see that. So I think our older generation knows that and understands that. And we are getting more and more. I'm more and more surprised every day that the amount of people that'll call us say, we're buying this because you guys are American made. We're buying this because, like, right now we're making personal protection stuff. We basically switched from Real Geese stuff to making PPE, and people are buying it just because of that. So I think eventually it's going to make a difference. Is it going to make a huge switch? No. But I do think that if the older generation starts to mentor the younger ones a little bit more than what I have seen, we are really good at it, but there's still a lot of them. The younger generation, again, I get into that. They think they've seen it all and done it all, and really only been out there for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And they buy that they just buy. They don't really care. So yeah and no, it is changing the way it is, especially with the world it is today. And then the United States, loves to get into political wars.
Hey,
now you talk about the younger generation and the older generation with Made in America, but do you find that's also the same with like your decoys? For example, like I like the duck hunting a lot more. So when I was looking at decoys to start, it's just like, man, what's affordable to get into this? And then now, like, we had Dixie decoys on, and I was like, man, those things will last, and I can give them to my grandkids, and that's kind of like, I'm seeing that more, like the older generation people that I talk to and the videos I watch, they're all talking about hand carved decoys that I can pass on. But when I was first getting into it, it's like, what can I afford? And that's not going to last. And that's a new culture thing. That's the younger generation. Are you finding that?
Yeah, and I kind of refer to this group is a throwaway generation. If you look back at our grandfathers and our dads, and when something broke, they fixed it. Now the younger generation, and I have a 16-year-old, and I've been around that group. When something breaks on them, they just buy a new one on Amazon. And that's where I grew up halfway in the middle of that. I like new things, but I like to fix things. If there's something wrong with it, let's see if we can fix it first. Then we make that decision. And I think if they're eventually going to it, I think it's a fad right now, that they're buying the cheaper made products and the stuff like that doesn't last. And I think, again, it also go back to what I said earlier, the level of commitment of what you're looking at how diehard of a hunter are you? Do you really want to hunt? How long do you want to hunt? If you're only going to look at it, doing it for a little bit just to see if you like it, again, you're back to what can I afford? What can I do? But it's also, am I going to hunt with my kids? In 5-6 years, if you got a young one that, you might want to bring up, I need to have my decoys last until then. I think it's time that we go out and purchase something better. It's no different than anything that you purchase along that, shotguns and shells and layout blinds are the same way. We all have options, to buy something deeper or, cheaper, but is it better to buy that over, that? I think I do see that a lot. And I do also see the point to where I had a younger guy the other day, actually an older guy, bought a whole bunch of them for his grandson. Because his grandson had bought something else and wasn't happy with it, but ran out of money because he had to replace everything. So you do see that, and it's kind of cool to hear those stories because I get to see that grandfather teaching a grandson, hey, this is how the ropes are going to happen.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever hunted geese in Maryland?
I have not.
Your silos are much better than theirs.
And we have unleashed the elephant in the room.
Yes.
No.
Oh no.
Do tell.
Yes, I'm interested.
Okay, so I went to hunt in Maryland a few years ago in January, and our intention was to go on a duck hunt on the Chesapeake.
Okay.
And of course we showed up there, and the outfitter kind of screwed us over and put us in a field, in a box in a green field, surrounded by 200 handmade silhouettes. So, but they did not look good.
And it did not work.
And they did not work.
Yeah.
Painted the rest of his life.
Were they like painted with gloss black Rust-Oleum from Walmart?
No, they used flat paint. The colors were brown, mostly brown, with some black and white on them. Obviously, in the spots where it kind of has it on a real goose, kind of, but not really. But anyway, we were surrounded by 200 of these things.
Oh man!
And it's just every field had the same thing. Like when you drive around Maryland, every field's leased, so they all have these big green box blinds in a green field, surrounded by these silhouettes and
Homemade silhouettes.
Homemade silhouettes, yeah. But
That-
then you ask the outfitter, and he's like, yeah, it's all we ever needed around here. This is what kills geese. And you don't need full bodies, you don't need this, you don't need that. And we're sitting there. There's 4 or 5 of us on a two goose limit per person in Maryland, and we get one
Oh man!
all day.
Oh.
We've seen
Yeah, I think I would have
50,000.
gotten. I'm pretty sure I would have walked in the field and turned around. You'd be surprised though. I get, oh man, and it's nothing against the people that work with us, but they'll call me and they'll send me an idea, and I can't help to think of why. At what point is that a good idea? And it's nothing against them, but I've seen some rough stuff. The one that just recently I seen, a guy took a bunch of political signs from his neighbor's yard, spray painted them white, and then spray painted them black. Well, you can imagine after it's got about 4 or 5 layers of ink on it, it looked pristine. And I'm pretty sure he cut it out with a butter knife out of his wife's cabinet. And he's like, this is what you should really make. These really work. And being political, you kind of got to say, okay, well, yeah, let me take a look at it.
Mhm.
And you get it, and it's just, I actually printed it out and hung it up in my office because it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about hunting the X and having like the shittiest decoys in the world. You could still hunt the X with those shitty decoys and have a decent day, right?
If you know what you're doing, and a lot of people, they'll give me, well, our silhouettes aren't working, our silhouettes ain't working. And so my response is, they said, okay, next time set them up, and I want a picture of how you set them up. So tell me how you show me. Okay. In every decoy, every dozen that we sell, we put out we have a flyer in there that basically teaches you, where's the sun, where's the wind, and then how to set it up. And then it shows the angles, where they need to be pre-spaced and everything. Most of the time they throw that piece of paper away. The second thing is I see how their blinds look. They might as well have mirrors all over the place. And I'm like, well, there's your reason they don't work. I mean, you could have real geese, literally, no pun intended, out in the field, and they're not coming in there. So a lot of times I struggle with that, and it's easy to blame the decoys. That's the first thing that gets blamed, and I'm used to that. So a lot of times I always just try to work with them and try to say, hey, you should be able to hunt over anything and be able to do it if you do it right. And you got to scout too. You just can't go to some cornfield in the middle of nowhere and expect geese to show up. That's not how this works.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at with your shadow series. Like me personally, like if I'm going to traffic hunt something like your shadow series, that's an ideal situation. You want to deploy that with that black standing out. I mean, birds are going to see that a lot further distance than say like your normal, even a full body. That's going to attract and catch their attention a lot more. So like that's just a really good example where you could really effectively deploy a decoy like that, right?
Yeah, and it's exactly, you said it. I mean, that is one of the prime things that why we did what we did. And to be honest with you, I'm glad we did what we did because it has become one of our most popular decoys over the past 2 years. Matter of fact, we just released our Shadow Series 2, which is our uprights. A lot of our customers were asking for uprights of the Shadow Series. And I printed 150 dozen of them, and I sold them in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So when you release stuff like that and you see that amount of volume going out, it means we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Whether it's marketing or whether they're working, something is going on. I'm enjoying the ride as we go down it, and we're producing more product and more prototypes and more things like that. We always like to, guys like yourself, if you come up with ideas or you have a really cool thing that this might work, or if you guys ever thought about this, or I've had a lot of them recently are brants, stuff like that. If you have ideas, don't be afraid to shoot me a message or shoot me a text or whatever. Hey, you guys ever thought about doing that? And I'm up front. I'll be like, yeah, we thought of that, and cost wise, it doesn't make sense. Or no, that's a cool idea. What can I do to help make that possible? And some of our ideas that we've worked with haven't come from in-house. They've been from some of our customers.
I think one of the biggest things, like I've seen recently, guys here in Ontario that have posted, like you guys have gone to turkey silhouette. And in all honesty, I'm a big turkey hunter as well. From a turkey hunting standpoint, like turkeys more or less, like for lack of a better term, come in on a string, right? Like they're way out there and they're just going to come straight at you. It's not like a goose, they're coming into your spread. They might circle a couple times to give you the once over and stuff, where like those silhouette decoys for a turkey makes like a lot of sense. You can throw out 4, 5, 6, and it's nothing to throw those in the back of your vest and carry those out. Where I carry 3 full body turkey decoys, and like that's a lot to haul out on top of your vest and your gun and whatever else, right?
Yeah, and the turkey decoys, we just we had a lot of around here because turkey hunting is huge around my area, and we just had a lot of them. I just made a bunch of them for some friends, and then it turned into people wanting them, and then we started getting them on the website. Then it turned into more than what we thought it would ever turn out to, And, you know, matter of fact, there's some other things that a lot of people don't understand too. We have deer, and I use them for deer. We actually had to make our buck smaller. You know, not getting off into the waterfowl situation, but I had my decoy scare my smaller bucks away. And it's the same concept. They're easy to carry, easy to set up. And you go right back to, you can carry what you want out to where you need to go. You don't need to carry, you know, you don't have to have a 53-foot trailer hauling all your stuff.
Yeah. And like, I'm a huge proponent of the silhouettes. I run 10 dozen silhouettes. That's all I use. And like guys are easy to jump on, blame the decoys, blame this, blame that. And like I've had birds, educated birds, worked birds, circle, and they'll still suck into the spread. And I've been out there, and you know, guys will blame their hides and it's not. Where we've been duck hunting a cut cornfield, and birds have come in, and obviously there was more behind. Some guys let them land, and I look beside me, and there's ducks feeding off my buddy's layout blind, like legit picking the corn off of his blind. Like guys will come up with every excuse in the world as to why things don't work. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's probably you're the problem, not your equipment or anything else that you've done, right?
Yeah, and we get it. I mean, I've hunted, you know, quite a bit into that situation. I mean, a lot of them will say, well, they disappeared and some, but if they're getting to the point to where they're disappearing, you should be shooting them.
Yeah.
And that's the point of where I get frustrated with some of that. I mean, I've had them landed. I went with a buddy about a year ago with a photographer, and I have all kinds of photos of literally birds walking around in video in our spreads. And we didn't take guns. We just took cameras. We got really nice cameras and lenses and stuff that we just wanted to go and shoot birds without, you know, guns, obviously. And just to watch them land and sit there. And right there was enough for us to say these work. You know, there's no reason for it not to work. And again, 95% of the time, there are times that our product or anybody else's product, because nobody's product is perfect. No, it's just not possible. And there are times where there might be an issue. But 95% of the time, like you said, it's on something you're doing wrong. And it necessarily doesn't have to be your blinds wrong. It can be how you're set up. It can be how they're faced. You know, there's a lot of different ways that could go wrong. But the risk is very minimal if you stick to a plan and stick to a schedule.
My son's just getting into goose hunting here. Last year was his first. At the end of last season was his first, and my buddy's got a full trailer of full bodies. And I made the first hunt we went on. I made him go hunt with us in that full body trailer, and I think he's got like 6 or 7 dozen. And I said, "All right, you set it up. I'm going to brush in the blinds." And we both just sat there, watched them, lugged them away. And then the next time we went out, we took my 10 dozen silos out, and I said, "All right, let's set these up together." And it was all done really quickly, and we woke up later, and he's like, "Dad, let's just do this from now on."
Yeah. I'm at the point I like your son. How old's your son?
He's 14 in a month.
Well, when we're done with this, make sure you send me his size and I'll send you a shirt.
Oh, perfect.
That way he's got the good stuff on.
Craig,
Dave, let me take him snow goose hunting.
yeah,
That too.
Yeah.
You set up the night before for that. Holy shit, you better.
Well, I don't know. Me and Ryan set up, in the morning.
Jesus. I don't know if judging by this summer and during COVID, I don't know if my son could get up in time to set up that many decoys.
Yeah, no doubt. Craig, you know, you're going to come on as the president. You're slowly working your way into that, and not taking anything away from Mr. Weiss and your dad or anything, but you're getting into it now, and it's a new age, and the social media and stuff, and you've done. And I'm not sure who's in charge of your I hate to use the word pro staff, but your ambassador program or whoever. But when you have guys like Perry up here in Ontario, who we all know and is a good friend and a well-respected hunter, how much time do you put into vetting the people that you attach your brand to?
Well, you know, when I kind of took over, the list was really long. and I didn't like that. I don't like a long list, and if you start looking at our pro staff's very thin. But the guys that we have, I really like. I kept some around, like Sean Mann. I've been with Sean. I've known Sean a long time. And some of the guys like Perry and Ryan Campbell, those guys are really they put a lot of data. When I started out, I asked for help, and they weren't afraid to give me help, which then told me they were invested. When I get a guy that'll, the most common thing is I want to be on the pro staff. Well, what can you give me? Is my first question. Pictures and content is great, but I don't want that all the time. I want them guys that'll be grueling out there and say, Craig, these decoys aren't working, or this isn't lasting, or they're going to actually take our product and use it the way it's supposed to be used and give me solid feedback. I can tell you there's pro staffs out there right now that have prototypes of some decoys that we're getting ready to release if we can. But they come back and tell me this needs changed, and then we change it and send it back to them. So those guys, that's why we pick such a handful. Now we are growing it slowly. I'm open to options, but that's the first question is, you can be a pro staffer, but what are you going to provide for me? And then how long have you been doing it? And I'm not afraid of this new guy, but a new guy stepping in, but I also like those veterans that you understand the value of, no glare. They understand the value of a quality decoy that's going to last. Because most of them guide, and most of them, hunt twice a day, and they hunt all day, and all week. So they're really using these things. So I value that, and we are slowly growing, and I'm building relationships with these guys. And most of the time, Perry or Ryan, those guys will be like, hey, you need to check this guy out, or that guy will call me and say, hey, these guys sent me. And if Perry or Ryan or any of these guys send them to me, I know that Perry and Ryan have stuck their neck out to say, hey, this guy's legit. So it's kind of word of mouth at this point. And eventually I want to grow it, but I don't want to grow it to where it's so large that, it kind of devalues it.
100%.
I don't like that word, but it is what it is. I mean, if you give something away for free and you give everybody the option, again, you're right back to you devalue that. So
it has to be, and yeah, I won't go down that rabbit hole. It has to be a give and take, right? Like it has to be, and it can't just be I'll throw some pictures up on Facebook for it. There's a million dudes that can throw pictures up on Facebook, right?
And that's what we get that a lot. I mean, that's the most common thing. Well, we can give you social media pictures. Well, that works, but I got photographers all over the world, and those photographers already know what I need, and that's the problem where I don't necessarily need more of those. I need more I don't need field testers because I get thousands of requests for those too. But I just need a guy that knows what he's doing, knows our process. Because most of the time what we do, and Perry and those guys have been there, but we bring them down to Real Geese and show them how they're produced. And show them why they're produced like this. Because people ask questions of why do you do it this way? Well, we do it this way because of it saves us money this way, or we feel it's a better product this way. So understanding the process of how the decoy is produced is a huge asset to these guys when they can come back to me and say, hey, you remember when we did this and they had that machine, and can we shrink that up a bit? Like one of the biggest thing right now is the distance between, so on our wood stakes, what we want to do is we're going to shrink in the rectangle up a little bit, and we're only talking 1/4 of an inch. But we felt like at that little of 1/4 of an inch will reduce some fraying over the course of 3 or 4 years. Again, very minimal, and many people will be like, "How does that makes a difference?" But for me, that's a huge difference because I get that a lot of, okay, well, we're fraying a little bit, and I don't want that. Let's fix that.
Don't you also find that like the people that call you and be like, hey, I use silhouettes all the time. I don't use yours, but I love silhouettes. Hey, can I be on your pro staff? Do you not find that a bit weird too? Like,
we get that a lot.
Yeah. Don't you want to support the people that already support you?
Yeah, and it's amazing to people that they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I just bought some of this so and so, or a product B or product C, but I really want to be on your pro staff. But wait a minute, you just bought my competitor. Why do you want to be on my pro staff?
Yeah.
So if you guys could be in our inbox on our social media, you would laugh daily at the stuff we get. But then, you'd be surprised at the cool things we get. Like we get every now and then people send in pictures of their younger daughter standing next to a goose and holding a shotgun, something fun. So there's a lot of give and take even on that end of it. You just kind of got to withstand the, hey, we're going to have some bad cookies in the batch.
This seems like an excellent point, because when I put this teaser out tomorrow about this show, I think this is an excellent point for you to talk about the little discount that you're going to provide to the listeners of the Union 0430. So I have no idea what it is, so let's kick it over to you, and yeah.
So what I've become a huge fan of the show. And a lot of the guys here in our shop, matter of fact, I sit next to a guy that is at work, and we've been listening to it almost every day. We play it out loud, and it was a cool thing. And it's some guys that, you guys are honestly a picture-esque of what we are at Real Geese. We're not this, corporate America, sitting in ties, collecting paychecks type thing. We're just a bunch of guys that enjoy a couple beers, enjoy making some decoys, and then that's it. So for you and the listeners, anybody that's on here wanting to buy anything Real Geese related, what we're going to do is put a promo code out there. It's the promo code is Punisher, and it'll be 25% off store-wide. And then if anybody calls and says that they heard us on the actual podcast, you can find our number on our website. We'll give you free shipping.
Wow.
So if anybody needs anything, just swing in there, call us on there, say you heard us on this podcast. You can't call us or something's up there, jump on our website, plug that in, and we'll be able to help you out the best we can. And that will go, the actual promo code will go for about 3 or 4 weeks. So if you got some time, you want to take some, got to, build the budget up, build it up, and come help out.
Wow, that is amazing, Craig. The 25% is pretty amazing, but when I hear free shipping, that blows me away, because I know how much shipping is. So that one always, that's just that extra little notch right there. That's amazing, man. And I can't thank you enough for doing something like that. That's I don't know what to say.
Hey, no way. We appreciate just even the broadcast of you guys doing this. I mean, this isn't something, there's not hundreds of shows like you guys. There's not. And what draws me to it is like I had said earlier, the raw, the uncut, and it gets down to the nitty gritty of what, is said in, amongst the waterfowlers. There's no, there's guys that don't like skinnies, and there's guys that do. And then you have that back and forth. And then and even just on regular products, that's how you make things better. If everybody said skinnies were 100% perfect, we'd all be lying. And by people telling me that this didn't work or these don't work, it makes me work harder to make it work. And that's what draws us to shows like your guys's. And that's what wanted me to be on the show to begin with. We don't do a lot of these, but the ones that we do, we make sure that they're a representation of what we feel is right.
Wow. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the nicest thing anybody's said on the show so far. It's beautiful.
You're gonna be.
We'll knock you down after the show.
That's what we've had an excellent conversation surrounding Real Geese. Excellent conversation on the science and all this. Listen, buddy, when you told me that you were a professional race car driver, like, you got a pretty goddamn cool job making decoys and hunting, but now you're a fucking race car driver too?
Well, yeah, it is a little different. I don't look like it, and I'm not this NASCAR guy that, making millions, and I'm not that. But, my father and I started a racing company or racing deal. I've been racing all my life. He ran motocross, and I've been doing it a long time. And, we have a beautiful rig. You can get on our Facebook and see it. We run 410 sprint cars, which to me are the baddest ass thing you could ever race. Think of 900 horsepower at 1,300 pounds. And we're not talking, 900 horse and 1,300 pounds with a clutch. We don't have clutches. So it's a direct drive right off the engine. There's no shifting, no nothing. And it's go as fast as you can for 30 laps with 24 other cars. And we do it on dirt. So if you guys get a chance, Google something that, I have my name in it on YouTube, and you can kind of see some racing stuff of that. You can see what I do. It's completely out in left field. We sponsor some race cars. Terry McCarro out in Iowa. We do some cool things like that amongst the group because we really enjoy it. And yeah, there you go. Perfect. And that picture, Dave, right there, that was just this past weekend. So that one's on pavement. And we had a bunch of, lack of a better terms, we took a bunch of dirt guys and took a dirt car and put 4 pavement tires on it and went and ran with some pavement guys, and ran really well. So we just are a bunch of guys that like to have fun, just like you guys do, but we just do it in the racing world. If you ever guys get down to the States my way or whatever, and you want to go some races, you're have at it. I do know there is some up in Canada, but I have no idea where it's at. And Oswego is one of the names. I don't know where that's at. If you ever heard of it. But we don't get up there very often because trying to get a race, you guys thought trying to get in the United States with hunting stuff is bad. Try to get up there with racing stuff and, hundreds of gallons of methanol.
Yeah, I bet. I watched, I Googled you the other day, and it looked like the race I watched, you were just drifting for like 30 laps. It was just your car was sideways for 30 laps the whole time.
You turn right to go left, and it's really odd. It's just kind of, you guys get to driving it all the time because you're in the snow all the time. But, it's constantly think that you're driving on ice, but you take your regular passenger car and times the horsepower by normally 3 or 4. The cage surrounds us. We're really safe in them. They're amazing. They're just small block Chevys, fuel injected. And we do a 40 lap races or 30 laps, and we'll use 28 to 29 gallons of methanol. So we're pouring the fuel to it. I've slowed down a little bit since I've gotten a family. I have a 7-year-old. I have a 16-year-old who's my stepson. I have a 7-year-old, and then I have a 6-year-old, excuse me, and then I have a 1.5-year-old. I got hurt about 4 or 5 years ago. Got to the point to where it was enough for me to slow down. We used to do 50, 60 races a year. Now I do 10 to 20. But it's an absolute blast.
It's amazing how that family sometimes puts things in perspective for you, eh?
Yeah, the doctor's orders was I wasn't even allowed to pick up a jug of milk. Basically, I took my spine and took all the liquids that are in it and compressed them out. So I couldn't even pick up my infant at that point. That kind of told me that I'm not doing it for a living. So let's just say we're going to hold back a little bit and kind of go from there. Because there are some times that, you do get hurt or, there is a chance that you're going to die. But we know that strapping in, but it's no different than going out, hunting. There is that chance.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's wild.
Yeah, yep.
What's your favorite race movie?
Race movie? Days of Thunder.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Trickle.
Yep, Cold Trickle. Now, if you guys ever,
I'm a big Talladega Nights fan myself, but
Not first to last.
help me, baby Jesus.
I pissed excellence.
Yes, Ricky Bobby. Anyway, if you go back to the Days of Thunder, and in the movie, Cold Trickle is testing his car. And in that, he will actually, the car owner comes over and talks to him and asks him what his experience has been. He actually says All-Star Sprints, which are a very local series that we race around here. It's actually owned by Tony Stewart, the NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of a little thing. But I've loved that movie since I was little. It's so cheesy in every aspect, but it's an awesome movie.
I'm not gonna lie. when I was a kid, I built like the model track car
Mhm.
from Cold Trickle, like the mellow yellow.
Oh yeah, well I have the Superflow car. I have multiple diecast of that one, of the Superflow car. We've actually taken the Mellow Yellow. There's a local guy that actually did one of his sprint cars up like the Mellow Yellow car.
Nice.
So it's big among us racers because it's just a cool deal. And that was a good question because I wasn't prepared for that one, but it was the one I would have actually chose that one.
Wow.
But Cars was a legitimate answer as well.
See, that's what I was just
See,
right.
I was just going to say, because when he said you got to turn right to go left, remember in the first Cars movie, the old car, that's what he told him. He said,
Doc.
Yeah, Doc told him. He was,
Yep.
Yeah.
Doc Hudson told him. Yeah, see, I got kids. I got all the Cars movies, but I like Cars too because it's got that Indy car kind of foreign look to it, and I'm a huge Formula One fan. So I really like any of that kind of things. I've always wanted to get up to Toronto to watch, and up there and up and watch those guys, but I've never had the chance to, just because I'm always so busy. Honestly, I don't have time to hunt as much as I want to, just because I spend more time with our decoys, and we have 7 other companies within Real Geese. Real Geese is actually pretty particularly small compared to our other companies, but it's the one we get the most enjoyment out of.
wow.
So here's a big question. I don't want to get into what your political affiliations are or the finances with Real Geese, but with the election coming up in the U.S., do you find that election season you have less sales because people are stealing the election signs and making their own silhouettes?
Yeah, and you'd be surprised how many people will do that. But we produce the election signs, so it works out in all the way. So, lack of a better
Got
term,
that market just cornered.
yeah, lack of a better terms, we do see that, and we don't. It's not a huge deal because most of the time, what happens is these guys think, "Oh, these are easy to make, right?" Yeah, they're not so easy to make when you start cutting these things out by hand, and then you got to paint them, and then most of the time there isn't a paint that sticks to coroplast anyway. So I get this is easy, and then about the 5th or 6th bird in, they realize that this sucks, and then they don't do it no more. But we get a couple people, and that's something that we debated in and dabbed in, that we were actually going to make a DIY or DY, whatever that whole etiquette is, but we were going to just cut the silhouette part out of either a white or black, offer it in a dozen deal, and sell them. Because we get a lot of people that they just want the decoy. They don't want anything else. They want to make it on their own. We've debated in that. But again, it kind of takes away what we're really going after, because the cost of the plastic is more than what the cost of the print is. So at that point, they're not really gaining anything. It just saves them the labor of cutting them out, because we have basically, think of it of a big computerized knife, and it cuts the shapes out to however we want to cut them at any time.
Yeah, I brought that up because my neighbor was over and I was showing him my Real Geese that I got. And I was showing them to him, and then he was asking me about some other companies, and I just said, those are just fucking election signs, bud. And it was during the last election, and sure as shit, I start seeing election signs disappearing on my street, and I'm going, that fucker took those things down. So,
yeah,
awesome.
it's the same plastic. It's no different. It's identically. And that's why people love it, because it's cheap for them because they go steal it. In the United States, that's a felony, though.
It probably is here in Canada too.
Still theft.
Yeah.
We've got bigger fish to fry in Canada than that right now.
Yeah.
So
yes.
that's low on the radar for us right now in Canada. Craig, buddy, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I cannot thank you enough for that very, very generous discount that you've put out to the listeners, to the millions and millions of listeners that we have. I can't thank you enough. It was amazing that you came on and gave us some education. I hope that we can ask you to come back on again. I'm just reading. Oh, yeah. That's why you just wrote. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I hope we can ask you to come back on again later on in the fall, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more stories, some hunt stories to tell you. Hopefully some funny stories with one of us doing something stupid, and everyone can get a good chuckle out of. I can't thank you enough, buddy, for coming on. I'll let you have the last word, but we'll go around the table. Just let the boys have their say, and you can have the last word. Mark.
It was good to meet you. Appreciate you coming on and sharing this time with us, and it was some good conversation. I enjoyed it.
Good.
Dave?
Yeah, thanks for coming on again. Oh, sorry, my dog just. Thanks for coming on. It was good talking to you and hearing more about the Real Geese there. And I love the product, right?
Thank you.
Good dog.
Philly?
Like everyone said, Craig, it's a pleasure. It's nice seeing, like you guys are back in like U.S. made 99%, right? And even though different country, it's still good to see those solid homegrown roots, so to speak, and we appreciate that.
Ryan?
Yeah, nice to meet you, Craig. Love your platform. If you can even convince and make a difference in somebody like Mark's life and switch him over to the skinnies, man, you're doing something. I think you had an impact on him today. So we should not make sure that momentum doesn't fall short.
Yeah, time to make those Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, we just got to keep Mark out of Maryland, is what it sounds like.
Got that right.
You know what? I think a trip to Ohio is in order. There we go.
You guys name the time, and I will make sure we have everything set up. Actually, we'll probably go to Michigan. Michigan has a little bit better hunting. Our limit down here is pretty rough. We have our 1 and 2 limit, depending on where you are. And our birds are nothing like what you guys have up there. You guys get bored down here. So we anytime we go hunting, we go north.
Yeah.
So we normally.
Right? You need
What's that?
Here.
Yeah, you need to come here.
I'll be honest. I've been up to Alberta once. We went up with Daryl for a couple times. I actually been up there twice. And I was pretty young at that point, but I remember I was 19, and at that point, the 19 was the legal drinking limit.
Yes, sir.
And I found out really quick how many kokanees I could drink. And to this day, that is my favorite beer.
That's decent.
So Sam,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a decent beer. Again, Craig, buddy, I gotta say it. Thanks so much. It's awesome. It's unbelievable that I continue to reach out. And I gotta say a quick thank you to Perry, because I reached out to Perry and I asked him. I said, "Hey, do you think Craig would come on?" And he was like, "Buddy," he said, "I'll ask him." And he said, "I'm sure he would." And within the 30 minutes, I had a reply back from you saying, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's figure something out. I'd love to be on." And I can't thank you. I can't thank you enough, because I know you're busy. You're a family man. You're running a ton of businesses. So for you to carve some time out of your schedule, it's amazing, and I really do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, Perry's a great guy, and I'm glad he threw a bone my way that way. And you guys keep doing what you're doing. It's a huge asset to the waterfowling industry. If there's anything I can do for you guys or anybody, the listeners that are there, please give me a call. If I'm not there, one of our helpers will help you. If they can't help you, they'll leave me a message, and I'll normally get that message. And 99% of the time, I personally call you back.
You heard it right there, everybody. You're listening to it. You heard it right from Craig, right from Real Geese. We are doing a good thing. We are exactly as advertised. There's nothing hidden here. No smoke and mirrors. We are a group of friends that really enjoy hanging out, talking hunting, drinking some beers, and just poking fun at one another and showing real life. This is it. You don't get much more unedited than that. Craig, thanks for coming on. Boys, love yous. Be good to everybody. Surround yourself with good people, and good things will happen. Until next time.